Hey, it's Neville here, and today I want to talk to you about creativity and how we can bring about more of it in our own lives. So people throw around this word creative all the time without really defining it. Some people think creativity means abstract things like Picasso paintings or very weird and abstract Andy Warhol art. But simply being abstract isn't the only way to be creative. For example, if Joe, our friend here, needs to stab someone, he could just grab a knife and do it. That's pretty easy. But Joe started stabbing a few too many people, and now Joe is in jail. Now, as you know, in jail, they don't allow knives. So if Joe wants to stab another person, he has to get creative. So he cobbles together some random materials he can get his hands on and creates a new type of knife. Now Joe can get back to his regularly scheduled stabbings with his new prison shank knife. You see, Joe has demonstrated creativity. He made a knife using materials traditionally not associated with making knives. This is actually a creative endeavor. Now, despite the weird example, that's what creativity is. It's taking something from another realm and applying it to what you're doing. A real-life example is James Dyson came up with a creative solution to the ordinary fan. Instead of a bunch of blades spinning around an axis to create an airflow, he invented a blade-free fan that pushes airflow in a totally different way. This Dyson fan uses the hydrodynamics law of entrainment to multiply airflow. It's when you use an existing current to augment the flow of a smaller current. This is typically used in different types of water pumps. However, the Dyson company had the insight to use the same principle on an air current. Simply applying an existing known principle to a different application made this a very creative way to make a fan. And because the Dyson fan was so different than other fans, it was able to be sold in the $300 to $500 range, whereas normal desk fans are usually in the around $50 range. So this creative endeavor not only created a better fan, but also allowed them to sell it for a lot more money. So by applying different methods to an existing invention, the Dyson company was able to sell a product and make far more money and profit per unit, meaning creativity, in this case, was very good. Another way to draw out creativity is when you are thinking of one problem, but then see something else happen that's similar. So you remember the famous story about the physicist and scientist Isaac Newton, how he was hit in the head with an apple, and that's when he came up with the idea for gravity? Well, the story goes, he pondered why an apple falls down instead of falling up. He concluded that the small apple is somehow attracted to the larger object, Earth, so that the apple is simply falling towards Earth. So he quickly realized that the smaller object always falls towards the bigger object. This stroke of creativity was discovered because Isaac Newton noticed one phenomenon, the small apple falling towards bigger Earth, and realized it worked the same for the moon. People always wondered back then why the moon stays in the orbit that it does. And Newton realized that, the Earth is bigger than the moon, so it will go around it as such. This small realization got him on the path to calculating if this could be true. And he found this theory that smaller objects are attracted to bigger objects worked out. Another way to be creative, and this is one of my favorites, is you take two different fields and smash them together. I'm always amazed at the results we get consulting clients in old school industries like real estate or healthcare. It's because many parts of those industries haven't caught up to modern marketing tools and best practices. Simply making a lame email sign up on their website will do wonders. Simply making a lame autoresponder has a tremendous effect. Simply making a lame giveaway can kill it in these industries. By applying the tools from one industry to another can have a huge impact. In fact, this has happened over and over again. For example, machine learning has technically been around since the 1940s, but computers were slow and expensive and lame at the time. So most of the mathematics required for machine learning was invented by that time already. They just didn't really catch up on the hardware end. So only in the last decade have those mathematical principles and computers finally merged into something useful, creating really useful and productive machine learning. Another interesting creative thing that's come out of a trifecta of technologies was everyone having phones, wireless internet access, and platforms for people to freelance. And this turned the taxi industry upside down and massively improved the experience in the last 5 years for millions of people trying to take taxis, but instead took Ubers or rides or Lyft. Another example of industry smashing together was the 1995 film Toy Story. It was the first ever fully computer animated movie. This trend has since continued, and most of the modern blockbusters today are mostly or partially animated. But it was a combination of movie making and computers that fostered this innovation. They took all the computer animation technology they had, applied it to movies, and created something totally new. To add on to this one, the more things you know, the more creative you can be. If you have more fields of knowledge to pull from, the more creative you can be. It's as simple as that. This means if you fill your head with more fields of expertise, your chance of being creative goes through the roof. Look at this chart. It's not very scientific, but it shows that your creativity goes up with the more things you know. This is a similar concept to our becoming a triple threat concept. By adding on more skills and fields of knowledge, you just become a more powerful force. For example, if you only know geometry, well, your life is pretty limited. You can make some cool shapes on a piece of paper, but not much else. However, let's say you know geometry and architectural design. Well, now you can turn those interesting patterns and shapes into something that can actually be built in the real world. But now let's say you become a triple threat and you know geometry pretty well, you know architectural design pretty well, and you're on the cutting edge of 3D printing. Well, now you can turn those interesting patterns into real life sculptures. And since you're on the bleeding edge of 3D printing technology, you can even make structures that were literally impossible to build with traditional manufacturing. Now, this triple threat person that knows geometry, architectural design, and 3D printing doesn't have a brain that's just naturally more creative. No, they just knew different fields that they can draw different things from, and therefore were way more powerful and can invent cool and new stuff that other people can't. So as you can see, the more stuff you know, the more creative you can be. Another great way to be creative is by creating a constraint. This is kind of hard to say, but constraints create creativity. So let's say I give you a $1 million budget to throw me a copywriting conference for 200 people. That means you get $5,000 per person to throw this conference. Well, this is going to be easy for you. I mean, you can host people in a nice hotel for a whole weekend, fly in expensive speakers, and cater every single meal. But wait, what if I take off 3 zeros from your budget? Whoa, now you only have $1,000 for 200 people. That means you've got a $5 budget per person. That is not a lot of money to throw a conference. So you will have to get very creative and make this a totally different type of conference. Your conference will have gone from a swanky W hotel kind of event with 5-course meals and martinis at every lunch to a more of a picnic style casual event serving maybe pizza and cheap beer. You can still throw the conference, but you will have to get way creative. And the reason you got so creative and created a conference for only $1,000 is because you had to get creative because of that constraint of money. Now, related to copywriting, a lot of people think creativity as a copywriter means trying to be clever. This is just simply not true. The job of a copywriter is not to show off your word wrangling skills and how clever you are. The job of a copywriter is to make a sale. It is to convince people of the argument you're making. It is to convince people on the merits of a product. It's to write stuff that people enjoy reading. It's to make a sale. Showing off how many big words you know is not part of the copywriter's job description. So let's go over that again. The real quick way to be creative without being all abstract and weird is 1, applying different methods to the traditional way of doing things. 2, drawing similarities between how things work. 3, take 2 different fields and smash them together. 4, the more things you know, the more creative you can be. 5, having constraints. Remember, constraints create creativity. So based on these just easy 5 methods, you can really tease out some creativity in your life. As you can see, when you break it down, being creative is actually something that can be developed and cultivated. So if you're ever feeling a bit uncreative, give these questions a quick try and see if they help. I'm Neville Medora, and I hope this helped you become just a little bit more creative.